They say appearances can be deceiving, but on this crisp autumn morning at Parker's Family Diner in Riverdale Valley, that saying would take on a whole new meaning. What began as a routine breakfast stop would soon become a turning point in exposing a criminal operation when members of the notorious cross-county raiders decided to harass the wrong farmer. Before we dive in, if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've got something extra special lined up for you. Rachel Anderson's weathered pickup truck pulled into the diner's gravel parking lot just as the morning fog was lifting from the surrounding cornfields. Her carefully cultivated appearance, faded overalls, mud-caked work boots, and calloused hands from apparent years of farm work was perfect for blending into rural America. The old silver wedding ring she still wore, though long since, widowed according to her cover story, added another layer of authenticity to her role as a former schoolteacher who'd inherited her family's farm. The bell above the door chimed as Rachel entered, her eyes automatically scanning the room while appearing to simply look for an empty seat. 8 customers scattered around the diner, an elderly couple sharing breakfast by the window, 3 construction workers at the counter, and a young family finishing up their meal. Emma, the teenage waitress working her way through community college, looked up from wiping down a table. "Morning, Miss Anderson. The usual spot?" Rachel nodded, maintaining her cover personality's warm, slightly reserved demeanor. "Thanks. Emma, coffee would be wonderful." She settled into her regular booth, the one with clear sightlines to both exits and the kitchen door. Her usual spot hadn't been chosen by chance. It gave her the perfect vantage point to observe the diner's clientele while appearing to focus on her morning paper. Linda Parker emerged from the kitchen, her round face brightening at the sight of Rachel. "Well, if it isn't my favorite early bird. How's that shoulder doing? That old tractor accident still giving you trouble?" The shoulder injury was part of Rachel's cover story, a convenient explanation for why she'd left teaching and taken over her uncle's farm. In reality, it was a carefully maintained fiction that helped explain any physical capabilities she might accidentally display. "Oh, you know how it is, Linda. Some days are better than others." Rachel's voice carried just the right mix of resilience and gentle humor that people expected from a former city teacher adapting to farm life. The diner's door chimed again. Rachel's peripheral vision caught the entrance of 4 men in dark jackets, their heavy boots scuffing against the worn linoleum floor. Cross-county raiders' patches decorated their backs, the same organization she'd noticed circling local farms recently, taking particular interest in properties with large equipment storage. Emma's shoulders tensed as she moved behind the counter. Linda's smile became fixed, professional rather than genuine. The atmosphere in the diner shifted subtly as other customers suddenly became very interested in their meals. "Coffee all around," the tallest man announced, claiming a booth with a clear view of the door. "And make it quick, sweetheart." Rachel appeared to focus on the newspaper in front of her, but she was noting every detail. The leader, who she recognized from local police bulletins as Marcus Stone, had fresh bruises on his knuckles. The youngest member kept checking his phone, while another had a suspicious bulge under his jacket that suggested a concealed weapon. Linda approached their table, coffee pot in hand. Her fingers trembled slightly as she poured. "Can I get you? Gentlemen, anything else?" "Yeah," Stone smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Tell that stubborn Williams woman down the road that her time's running out. Property values are dropping. She should sell while she can still get a good price." Rachel's interest sharpened. Grace Williams owned the largest equipment storage facility in the county. The raiders had been pressuring local farmers to sell, but this was the first time she'd heard them make such an open threat. I don't really get involved in real estate matters," Linda stammered. "I just run the diner." "Sure you don't, honey. Sure you don't." Stone's tone made the words sound like a threat. The elderly couple quickly settled their bill and left. The young family was gathering their things, the father protectively placing himself between the raiders and his children. The tension in the room was building like a summer storm about to break. Rachel maintained her role, appearing engrossed in her newspaper while carefully observing the interaction. She noted how Stone's right hand kept straying toward his jacket, and how the youngest raider's phone kept lighting up with messages about delivery schedules and tonight's pickup. The bell chimed once more. 2 more raiders entered, these ones she hadn't seen before. They nodded to Stone before taking positions near the door. This wasn't a casual breakfast meeting anymore. They were setting up a deliberate intimidation scenario. "Hey, lady," the youngest raider had noticed her watching. "Got a problem?" Rachel channeled her cover personality perfectly, a slightly flustered former teacher. "Oh no, no problem at all. Just finishing my breakfast." "Then stop staring. Mind your own business." "Leave her alone, Tommy." Linda's voice carried a trace of desperate authority. "She's a regular, just a farmer trying to have her morning coffee." "Shut it, Linda." Stone stood up. "In fact, everybody who isn't family needs to clear out now. Me and Linda need to have a private conversation about community relations." The remaining customers quickly gathered their things. The construction workers practically ran for the door. Only Rachel remained, deliberately slow in collecting her newspaper and bag. "That includes you, Teach," Tommy sneered. "Unless you want to learn what happens when people don't follow simple instructions." Rachel appeared to fumble with her purse, buying time while assessing the situation. 6 raiders, at least 3 armed. Emma was reaching for her phone, but one of the men spotted her. "Don't even think about it, girl." The phone clattered to the counter. Linda stood behind the counter, trembling but defiant. "Please just go. I'll pass along your message about Grace." "Oh, we're done with messages." Stone moved toward the counter. "Time for action. Your diner's going to be our new meeting spot, whether you like it or not, and if you have a problem with that." The coffee pot shattered against the floor as Linda stumbled back. "Stay away from me." Rachel's coffee cup hit the table with a deliberate clink. "You boys might want to rethink this situation." Her voice had changed, the warm, friendly tone replaced by something harder, professional, carrying the unmistakable authority of law enforcement. Stone turned away from Linda, irritation flickering across his face. "Lady, I thought I told you to leave. And I thought I heard Linda say she didn't want you near her." Rachel remained seated, her posture relaxed but alert. Her cover identity as a former teacher wasn't entirely false. She had taught advanced tactical training before joining SWAT. Those skills were about to become very useful. Tommy stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. "Looks like the school teacher needs a lesson in listening." "Last chance," Rachel warned quietly. "Walk away now, and we can all pretend this never happened." Stone nodded to Tommy, who reached for Rachel's arm. In one fluid motion, she grabbed his wrist, twisted, and used his own momentum to send him sprawling into an empty booth. The movement was precise, economical, nothing flashy or theatrical, just brutal efficiency. "What the?" The raider who'd been checking his phone reached into his jacket, but Rachel was already moving. She kicked the table in front of her, sending it sliding into his legs. As he stumbled, she closed the distance. 2 sharp strikes to pressure points left his arm numb, the concealed weapon clattering to the floor unfired. Behind the counter, Linda gasped. "Emma, get in the kitchen!" Rachel ordered, her voice commanding but calm. The young waitress scrambled to comply. The 2 raiders by the door moved to intercept her. Rachel grabbed a napkin dispenser from a nearby table and threw it at the first one's face. As he instinctively raised his hands to block, she stepped inside his guard. A knee to the solar plexus doubled him over. "Call Cross!" Stone shouted, pulling out his own weapon. "Tell him!" Rachel didn't let him finish. She used the second door guard as a shield, pushing him into Stone. The gun went off, the bullet embedding harmlessly in the ceiling. Linda screamed. The sound of the shot would draw attention. Rachel needed to end this quickly. A series of precise strikes left the second guard unconscious. Tommy was struggling to his feet, but a sharp elbow to the temple put him back down. The raider with the phone was crawling toward his fallen gun. Rachel kicked it away. Stone managed to disentangle himself and brought his weapon to bear again. Rachel was too far to reach him before he could fire. "Drop it!" A new voice rang out. Deputy Jack Cooper stood in the doorway, his service weapon drawn. Two patrol cars were pulling into the parking lot, lights flashing. Stone's eyes darted between Rachel and the deputy. Rachel saw the calculation in his eyes. He was deciding whether to shoot anyway. She tensed, ready to move. "I said, drop it." Cooper took careful aim. The fight seemed to drain out of Stone. The gun clattered to the floor as other officers rushed in to secure the scene.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Rachel noticed something interesting. One of the deputies hesitated before drawing his weapon, and he seemed more concerned with checking the fallen raiders than securing them. Linda emerged from behind the counter, shaking. I've never seen anything like that. Where did you learn to... Self-defense classes, Rachel supplied smoothly. You'd be surprised what they teach you these days. Deputy Cooper approached, holstering his weapon. Mind telling me what happened here, Ms. Anderson? Rachel gave her statement carefully, maintaining her cover story while watching the officers process the scene. The hesitant deputy was making a phone call outside, speaking too quietly to hear. One of the unconscious raiders was coming around, groaning. They threatened her, Emma explained, emerging from the kitchen. They were trying to intimidate Linda about the diner, and Ms. Anderson just... It was like something out of a movie. Not like a movie, Rachel corrected gently. Just good training and quick thinking. She watched as the officers collected Stone's weapon and noticed how they seemed to ignore the gun the other raider had dropped. Linda was sitting at the counter, her face pale. They've never been this bold before. Usually they just talk, make suggestions. This time, she looked at Rachel. Thank you, really. Deputy Cooper finished taking statements and approached. Rachel again. We'll need you to come down to the station. Standard procedure for any incident involving weapons. Rachel nodded, noting how the hesitant deputy was now watching her intently. As she gathered her things, she activated the small recording device hidden in her watch. The next few hours would be crucial. The raiders would be making calls, adjusting plans, possibly revealing connections. Through the diner's windows, she could see more motorcycles approaching. Word was spreading. Her cover as a simple farmer might be compromised, but that could work to her advantage. Sometimes the best way to uncover a conspiracy was to disrupt. It forced the players to make mistakes. Linda touched her arm. They'll be back, not these ones, but others. The raiders don't let things go. I know, Rachel smiled reassuringly, but neither do I. As she followed Deputy Cooper to his patrol car, Rachel's hand brushed against her phone, sending a prearranged signal to her FBI contact, Agent Amy Chen. The operation was shifting, phases ahead of schedule. The raiders had just given her exactly what she needed, a reason to stay close to their organization without maintaining deep cover. Stone glared at her as he was loaded into a different patrol car. You have no idea what you just started, lady. Rachel met his eyes calmly. Actually, I think you're the ones who don't understand what's happening here. The diner's security cameras had captured everything, including the deputy's selective evidence collection. By tonight, that footage would be in Agent Chen's hands. Another piece in the growing puzzle of corruption and criminal enterprise that threaded through Riverdale Valley. As the patrol car pulled away, Rachel caught a glimpse of a familiar vehicle parked down the street. Agent Chen's surveillance team was already in position, documenting everyone who came to check on the fallen raiders. Each face, each license plate, each phone call would help map the organization's structure. The Riverdale Valley Police Station buzzed with unusual activity as Rachel sat in the interview room, maintaining her cover while observing the controlled chaos through the window's reflection. 3 different officers had already tried to take her statement, each one asking slightly different questions, probing for inconsistencies. Deputy Cooper entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. He set one in front of Rachel. "Sorry about the wait. Ms. Anderson, lots of paperwork when firearms are involved." Rachel noted the deputy's careful positioning, back to the camera, blocking its view of Rachel's face. A deliberate choice. She wrapped her hands around the coffee cup, playing up the slightly nervous farmer act. "I understand. Just doing your job." "Those men you subdued," Cooper kept his voice casual. "They've got quite a record. Assault, extortion, weapons charges. But somehow the charges never stick." He paused, watching Rachel's reaction. "Strange, isn't it?" Through the open door, Rachel caught glimpses of other officers' reactions. The hesitant deputy from earlier was huddled over his phone, speaking urgently. 2 others were reviewing the security footage, their expressions dark. "Life can be strange that way," Rachel replied carefully. "Sometimes things aren't what they seem." The door opened again. Sheriff Robert Wilson strode in, his face a mask of professional concern. "Ms. Anderson, I apologize for your experience today. We take incidents like this very seriously in Riverdale Valley." Rachel didn't miss how Deputy Cooper's shoulders tensed slightly at the sheriff's entrance. "Interesting. I'm sure you do, Sheriff." Rachel adjusted her posture, letting a hint of her true training show through. "Though I have to wonder why men with such extensive records were walking around free to threaten innocent people." Wilson's smile didn't reach his eyes. "We're doing everything we can within the bounds of the law." A commotion in the hallway interrupted them. A tall man in an expensive suit was arguing with the desk sergeant. "I'm their attorney. You can't hold them without charges." Behind him stood Bill Thompson, a member of the town council. The pieces were falling into place. "If you'll excuse me," Sheriff Wilson said, rising, "Deputy Cooper will finish processing your statement." As soon as the sheriff left, Cooper leaned forward slightly. "You should be careful, Ms. Anderson. The raiders have friends in high places." "Sounds like something that would concern a good police officer," Rachel remarked quietly. Cooper met her eyes. "Yes, it would." Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She angled the screen away from the camera as she read, "Nobody disrespects the raiders. Cross wants to meet, discuss compensation for this morning's misunderstanding." Another message followed quickly. "The old Thompson barn, 8 p.m. Come alone or Linda pays for your mistake." Deputy Cooper pretended to shuffle papers, giving Rachel time to respond. Through the window, Rachel saw the released raiders being escorted out, their attorney deep in conversation with Sheriff Wilson. "One more thing," Cooper said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Watch out for Deputy Hayes. He's got a habit of losing evidence in raider cases." Rachel nodded almost imperceptibly. She'd already noted Hayes as the hesitant deputy from the diner. His phone calls would make interesting listening once Agent Chen's team processed the surveillance data. The station's front door opened again. 2 agents in FBI windbreakers entered, heading straight for the sheriff's office. Right on schedule, Chen's team making their presence known, adding another layer of pressure. Rachel's phone buzzed again, this time from Linda. "They're watching the diner. Someone's taking pictures of customers. What do I do?" Before Rachel could respond, she received another message, this one from a blocked number. "Tell your FBI friends to back off, or we find out if those self-defense classes covered explosives." Rachel kept her expression neutral as she stood. "Are we finished here, deputy?" "For now." Cooper handed her a card. "Call if you think of anything else. Anything at all." In the parking lot, Rachel took her time walking to her truck, her eyes catching multiple reflections of men watching from parked cars. Raider surveillance. They weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. She started the engine just as another expensive car pulled into the lot. Mayor Gregory Hayes, Bill, Thompson's brother-in-law. The web of connections was becoming clearer. Her secure phone vibrated, the real one hidden in her boot. Agent Chen's message was brief. Meeting in 30. Major developments. International buyers involved. Rachel pulled out of the parking lot, noting the two motorcycles that fell in behind her at a discreet distance. The raiders were escalating just as she'd predicted. Their organized response suggested deeper resources than a typical rural crime gang. She took a deliberate route home, giving the surveillance team time to document her followers. Let them think they were the ones watching her. The real question was why a local theft ring needed political protection, FBI attention, and international connections. The answer, she suspected, would be worth all the risks. But first, she had a barn meeting to prepare for. Nathan Cross wanted to talk. Perfect. In her experience, criminals were most revealing when they thought they had the upper hand. Her. Watch buzz twice. Agent Chen signaled that the surveillance net was in place. Whatever happened at the barn tonight would be well documented. The raiders were about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating their opponents. As Rachel parked in her farmhouse driveway, her neighbors waved cheerfully, completely unaware of the drama unfolding in their quiet farming community. The motorcycles following her cruised past slowly, their riders making no attempt to hide. Their observation. The sun was setting over Riverdale Valley, casting long shadows across the weathered wood of Thompson's old barn. Rachel parked her truck at the designated meeting spot, noting the strategic positioning of raider motorcycles around the perimeter. Through her truck's mirrors, she counted at least 6 bikes, their riders maintaining casual poses that didn't quite hide their tactical positioning. Nathan Cross cut an imposing figure even in the fading light. He stood by the barn's entrance, his expensive leather jacket a stark contrast to the rustic setting. 2 men flanked him, their raider patches newly sewn on, professional muscle, not local thugs. Their stance and positioning suggested military or security background. "Ms. Anderson," Cross's voice was surprisingly cultured, "thank you for accepting my invitation. I believe we have some matters to discuss." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "This morning's unpleasantness, for example." Rachel maintained her role as she approached, projecting the image of a cautious but strong-willed farmer. She noted fresh tire tracks leading behind the barn. Heavy vehicles had recently been here, leaving deep impressions in the soil. "Your men threatened a friend," Rachel replied evenly. "Where I come from, that requires a response." "Ah, yes, your self-defense training." Cross gestured toward the barn's interior. "Impressive skills for a former schoolteacher. Please join me inside. We have much to discuss." The barn's interior had been recently modified. New lighting systems cast harsh, fluorescent glares across what should have been an abandoned storage space. Through gaps in the wall boards, Rachel spotted more raiders taking positions around the building. "You've caused quite a stir, Ms. Anderson," Cross continued, leading her toward a makeshift office area. "5 of my men in the hospital, police involvement, FBI attention, all very inconvenient." A laptop sat open on a desk, displaying what appeared to be shipping manifests. Rachel caught glimpses of serial numbers matching stolen farm equipment before one of Cross's men closed the screen. "Seems like a lot of organization for simple farm equipment theft," Rachel observed carefully. Cross's laugh was cold. "Is that what you think this is about? Stealing tractors?" He pulled out a chair, gesturing for her to sit. We're offering opportunities, Ms. Anderson. The chance to be part of something much more profitable than farming. Through the barn's high windows, Rachel spotted movement, more vehicles arriving, these ones expensive SUVs with darkened windows. One of Cross's men checked his phone, then whispered something in his boss's ear. Our organization is expanding. Cross continued, we need people with particular skills, people who understand discipline, chain of command. He studied her face. People who can handle themselves in difficult situations. Rachel maintained her cover, but her mind was racing. The raiders weren't just stealing equipment, they were using it as cover for something bigger. Her phone vibrated silently in her pocket, Agent Chen updating the situation. I'm a farmer, Rachel replied simply. Nothing more. Are you? Cross smiled. Let's talk about your farm, Ms. Anderson. Inherited from your uncle, wasn't it? Interesting how there's no record of him ever owning property in Riverdale Valley before 5 years ago. A door opened at the far end of the barn. Bill Thompson entered, accompanied by 2 men Rachel didn't recognize. Their suits and bearings screamed federal, but not law enforcement. Our associates have some concerns, Thompson announced, his usual political smoothness strained. After this morning's incident, they're questioning our control of the situation. Rachel noted how Cross's men subtly shifted positions, creating clear firing lanes while appearing casual. These weren't ordinary criminals. This was professional tactical positioning. Ms. Anderson was just about to help us resolve those concerns, Cross replied smoothly. Weren't you? Before Rachel could respond, her phone buzzed again. A message from Linda. Rachel, they're at the diner again. Different men. They're asking about shipping schedules. Cross noticed her checking the phone. Ah yes, your friend Linda, loyal woman. It would be unfortunate if anything happened to her diner. Health code violations can be so troublesome. The threat was clear, but something about the setup felt wrong. They were pushing too hard, too fast. Through a gap in the barn boards, Rachel spotted more vehicles arriving, expensive ones with diplomatic plates. What exactly do you want from me? Rachel asked, buying time while she counted exits and noted positions. Partnership, Cross spread his hands. Your farm's location is ideal, remote, private, excellent road access, perfect for our needs. Agricultural equipment is very valuable these days, one of the suited men added, his accent vaguely Eastern European, especially when properly repurposed. Rachel's hidden watch vibrated twice. Agent Chen signaled that surveillance was in position. Everything happening in the barn was being recorded. You're using stolen equipment for something, Rachel observed. But this level of organization, these resources, it's not just about selling hot tractors, is it? Cross's smile widened. Very perceptive. You see, modern farm equipment has fascinating capabilities. GPS systems, automated controls, sophisticated electronics. With the right modifications, they can be quite useful for moving other types of cargo. Cross, Thompson warned. She doesn't need to know details yet, but Rachel was already putting the pieces together. The diplomatic plates, the professional security, the shipping manifests. They were using modified farm equipment to smuggle something valuable enough to warrant international attention. Her phone buzzed again. Agent Chen's message was urgent. Major players on site. Cartel connections confirmed. Stand by for potential breach. Time to decide, Ms. Anderson, Cross announced. Join us, enjoy significant profits, and ensure your friend's safety. Or, he let the threat hang. A commotion outside drew attention. One of Cross's men entered quickly, speaking in hushed tones. Rachel caught fragments about unscheduled delivery and customs inspection. Cross's expression hardened. It seems we need to accelerate our timeline. Your answer, Ms. Anderson? Rachel appeared to consider, noting how the suited men were now checking their phones urgently. Something had spooked them. "If I say no," she asked carefully, "then we'll need assurance of your silence," Thompson replied. "Perhaps through demonstration of what happens to uncooperative farmers." Rachel's watch vibrated again. 3 quick pulses. Agent Chen signaled that federal teams were moving into position. The next few moments would determine everything. "You should know," Cross added, "we've already had similar conversations with other farmers. Grace Williams was particularly resistant. Unfortunately, accidents happen on farms all too often." But the implications of his words changed everything. Grace Williams' recent accident hadn't been an accident at all. The raiders weren't just thieves, they were killers using farm equipment theft as cover for international smuggling operations. Through the gathering darkness of Riverdale Valley, Rachel's truck moved steadily along the back roads, followed at a distance by 2 raider vehicles. After the tense meeting at Thompson's barn, she knew her every move was being watched. Her phone lit up with a message from Linda. "They're still here, Rachel. Different men now. They're going through the diner's storage room." Rachel checked her rearview mirror, noting how the raiders maintained perfect pursuit distance. Not local thugs, but trained professionals. Her watch vibrated with Agent Chen's coded signal. Surveillance teams were tracking multiple vehicles, converging on Linda's diner. Back at the barn, Cross had made his threat clear. "By morning, you'll give us your answer. Consider Linda's situation. Motivation for making the right choice." The pieces were falling into place. The raiders weren't just using stolen farm equipment for smuggling. They were building an entire infrastructure using rural properties as cover. Grace Williams's death had been a message to other resistant farmers. Rachel's secure phone buzzed. Agent Chen's update was urgent. Cartel representatives confirmed at Thompson Warehouse. International buyers arriving within 24 hours. Timeline accelerating. Her regular phone chimed with another message, this one from Deputy Cooper. "Sheriff, Wilson just ordered all patrols away from the diner area. Something's happening." Through her truck's mirrors, Rachel spotted a 3rd vehicle joining her tail, an expensive SUV she recognized from the barn meeting. The suited men were maintaining their own surveillance. The stakes were escalating rapidly. Linda's voice had trembled during her last call. "Rachel, they're asking about the storage basement. I never told them about the basement." Rachel's training kicked in, analyzing the situation. The diner's basement had been a Prohibition-era storage space, connected to old tunnel systems that ran beneath the town. If the raiders were interested in that? Her watch vibrated again. Agent Chen had identified the suited men, former military contractors, now working for Eastern European weapons dealers. This wasn't just smuggling, it was international arms trafficking using modified farm equipment as cover. Rachel's truck approached the town limits. The raiders had been pressuring local farmers to sell, targeting properties with specific features, remote locations, good road access, large storage facilities. They weren't just choosing random targets, they were building a network. Her phone lit up with multiple messages. From Linda, "More men arriving. They're measuring the basement walls." From Deputy Cooper, "Hayes just removed evidence from the raid. Security footage accidentally erased." From an unknown number, "Cross says to remind you, teachers shouldn't stick their noses where they don't belong. Linda's diner is on an inspection list tomorrow." Rachel made a decision. She turned her truck toward the diner, noting how her tails immediately adjusted their routes. They'd expect her to try to warn Linda. It's what a concerned farmer would do. Agent Chen's message confirmed her suspicions. Thermal imaging shows extensive tunnel system under diner, recently modified. They're not just smuggling through farms, they're using the whole town's infrastructure. Through the diner's windows, Rachel could see unusual activity. Men in work clothes taking measurements, checking walls, but their movements betrayed military training. Linda stood behind the counter trying to maintain her composure while raiders systematically mapped her basement. Rachel's watch vibrated with an urgent signal. Agent Chen's teams had intercepted communications. The inspection tomorrow wasn't just a threat. It was cover for converting the diner's basement into a distribution hub. She parked her truck, noting how the surveillance vehicles spread out to cover all exits. As she entered the diner, the bell's cheerful chime felt jarringly out of place. "Rachel," Linda's relief was palpable. "I didn't expect you tonight." The raiders' presence was overwhelming. At least 8 men, all maintaining casual poses that didn't quite hide their tactical positioning. Through the kitchen door, Rachel glimpsed more men in the basement. "Just checking on my friend," Rachel replied, loud enough to carry. Her eyes met Linda's, trying to convey a warning. "Stay calm. Play along." "Ms. Anderson!" a smooth voice called. From a corner booth, Eric Phillips, Cross's second-in-command, gestured for her to join him. "Perfect timing. We were just discussing business opportunities with Linda." Rachel sat, noting the blueprints spread across the table. Detailed. Plans of the town's underground infrastructure. Her phone buzzed silently. Agent Chen confirming that surveillance was in place, recording everything. "Linda's Diner is a local institution," Phillips smiled. "We're interested in investing in its future." "Funny way of showing it," Rachel replied carefully. "Usually investors don't need quite so much muscle." "Insurance," Philip shrugged. "These days, you can't be too careful." Speaking of which, he slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos. Grace Williams' accident, forensically staged to look natural. "Accidents happen all the time on farms," Phillips continued. "Equipment malfunctions, falls, fires. It would be tragic if similar accidents started happening in town. To diners, for example." Rachel's watch vibrated again. Agent Chen warning that more raiders were arriving, taking positions around the building. Through the windows, she spotted Deputy Hayes's patrol car parked across the street, deliberately facing away from the diner. Linda approached with coffee, her hands shaking slightly. Rachel noticed bruises forming on her wrist. Someone had gotten rough while inspecting the basement. "Your farm's location is perfect," Phillips continued. "Direct access to the county highway, large equipment barns, and that old grain silo." He smiled. "Perfect for our needs. Cross is offering very generous terms." Rachel's phone lit up with urgent messages. From Cooper. "Wilson ordered all patrols to the other side of town. Something big's moving tonight." From Agent Chen. "Weapons, shipment confirmed. Using modified farm equipment for transport. Multiple international buyers involved." From an unknown number. Cross says, "Decide now." Or Linda learns why Grace Williams should have sold when she had the chance. Rachel calculated options. The raiders had effectively taken control of the diner. Linda was trapped. Agent Chen's teams couldn't move without risking civilian casualties. And somewhere in town, a major weapons shipment was being prepared. "Tell Cross I'll consider his offer," Rachel replied carefully. "But Linda stays out of this." Phillips's smile widened. "That depends entirely on your cooperation, Ms. Anderson. We'll expect you at your farm in 1 hour. Our associates are very interested in discussing equipment modifications." As Rachel stood to leave, she caught Linda's eye. The diner owner's fear was real, but there was something else. Determination. She slightly nodded toward the kitchen, where Emma was watching wide-eyed. The young waitress had her phone out, partially hidden behind a coffee pot. Rachel's watch vibrated one final time. Agent Chen confirming that Emma's video of the raiders' threats was already being uploaded to secure servers. Sometimes the best evidence came from unexpected sources. The town hall of Riverdale Valley stood as a monument to small-town America, its brick facade and white columns projecting an image of honest government that couldn't have been further from the truth. Rachel watched from her truck as raiders took up positions around the building, their presence just subtle enough to avoid obvious intimidation. She turned her truck toward the diner, noting how her tails immediately adjusted their routes. They'd expect her to try to warn Linda. It's what a concerned farmer would do. Agent Chen's message confirmed her suspicions. Thermal imaging shows extensive tunnel system under diner, recently modified. They're not just smuggling through farms, they're using the whole town's infrastructure. Through the diner's windows, Rachel could see unusual activity. Men in work clothes taking measurements, checking walls, but their movements betrayed military training. Linda stood behind the counter trying to maintain her composure while raiders systematically mapped her basement. Rachel's watch vibrated with an urgent signal. Agent Chen's teams had intercepted communications. The inspection tomorrow wasn't just a threat. It was cover for converting the diner's basement into a distribution hub. She parked her truck, noting how the surveillance vehicles spread out to cover all exits. As she entered the diner, the bell's cheerful chime felt jarringly out of place. "Rachel," Linda's relief was palpable. "I didn't expect you tonight." The raiders' presence was overwhelming. At least 8 men, all maintaining casual poses that didn't quite hide their tactical positioning. Through the kitchen door, Rachel glimpsed more men in the basement. "Just checking on my friend," Rachel replied, loud enough to carry. Her eyes met Linda's, trying to convey a warning. "Stay calm. Play along." "Ms. Anderson!" a smooth voice called. From a corner booth, Eric Phillips, Cross's second-in-command, gestured for her to join him. "Perfect timing. We were just discussing business opportunities with Linda." Rachel sat, noting the blueprints spread across the table. Detailed. Plans of the town's underground infrastructure. Her phone buzzed silently. Agent Chen confirming that surveillance was in place, recording everything. "Linda's Diner is a local institution," Phillips smiled. "We're interested in investing in its future." "Funny way of showing it," Rachel replied carefully. "Usually investors don't need quite so much muscle." "Insurance," Phillips shrugged. "These days, you can't be too careful." Speaking of which, he slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos. Grace Williams' accident, forensically staged to look natural. "Accidents happen all the time on farms," Phillips continued. "Equipment malfunctions, falls, fires. It would be tragic if similar accidents started happening in town. To diners, for example." Rachel's watch vibrated again. Agent Chen warning that more raiders were arriving, taking positions around the building. Through the windows, she spotted Deputy Hayes's patrol car parked across the street, deliberately facing away from the diner. Linda approached with coffee, her hands shaking slightly. Rachel noticed bruises forming on her wrist. Someone had gotten rough while inspecting the basement. "Your farm's location is perfect," Phillips continued. "Direct access to the county highway, large equipment barns, and that old grain silo." He smiled. "Perfect for our needs. Cross is offering very generous terms." Rachel's phone lit up with urgent messages. From Cooper. "Wilson ordered all patrols to the other side of town. Something big's moving tonight." From Agent Chen. "Weapons, shipment confirmed. Using modified farm equipment for transport. Multiple international buyers involved." From an unknown number. Cross says, "Decide now." Or Linda learns why Grace Williams should have sold when she had the chance. Rachel calculated options. The raiders had effectively taken control of the diner. Linda was trapped. Agent Chen's teams couldn't move without risking civilian casualties. And somewhere in town, a major weapons shipment was being prepared. Tell Cross I'll consider his offer, Rachel replied carefully. But Linda stays out of this. Phillips's smile widened. That depends entirely on your cooperation, Ms. Anderson. We'll expect you at your farm in 1 hour. Our associates are very interested in discussing equipment modifications. As Rachel stood to leave, she caught Linda's eye. The diner owner's fear was real. But there was something else. Determination. She slightly nodded toward the kitchen, where Emma was watching wide-eyed. The young waitress had her phone out, partially hidden behind a coffee pot. Rachel's watch vibrated one final time. Agent Chen confirming that Emma's video of the raiders' threats was already being uploaded to secure servers. Sometimes the best evidence came from unexpected sources. The town hall of Riverdale Valley stood as a monument to small-town America, its brick facade and white columns projecting an image of honest government that couldn't have been further from the truth. Rachel watched from her truck as raiders took up positions around the building, their presence just subtle enough to avoid obvious intimidation. Move everything and find out who talked. The mayor had vanished during the chaos. Deputy Hayes was being detained by his own colleagues. Through the windows, Rachel watched Cross and the suited men escaping in their SUVs, followed by raider escorts. They'll go to ground, Deputy Cooper said, joining them. Probably the secondary location we haven't been able to find. Rachel nodded. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The council meeting had served its purpose, forcing multiple criminal elements into hasty action. Her phone buzzed with a message from Cross. Meeting tonight. Don't be late. He knows I betrayed him, Linda whispered fearfully. No, Rachel reassured her. He suspects, but he doesn't know, and that uncertainty is exactly what we need. The real operation was just beginning. Sometimes the best way to expose a criminal enterprise was to make them think they were about to lose everything. Darkness had settled over Rachel's farm like a shroud as she parked her truck behind the main barn. The council meeting's chaos still echoed through the town, but here in the rural quiet, a different kind of tension waited. Cross emerged from the shadows, flanked by Phillips and two men Rachel hadn't seen before. Their posture and bearing screamed military background. Private security, maybe ex-special forces. Interesting evening, Cross's voice carried across the empty barnyard. The council meeting proved quite, enlightening. Hard to run a farm with all this political drama, Rachel replied carefully, noting the fresh blood on Philip's knuckles. Inside her barn, equipment had been hastily moved. Fresh tire tracks marked where vehicles had recently loaded or unloaded cargo. Go on. The air carried a hint of gun oil and metal. We have a problem, Cross gestured for Rachel to follow. Someone's been feeding information to the feds. The council meeting was a setup. One of the new men spoke, his accent Eastern European. The weapons shipment is compromised. My employers are concerned. Rachel maintained her cover, playing the professional farmer. Sounds like you need better security. Exactly. Philip smiled coldly. Which is why you're here. Time to prove your loyalty. They led her to a makeshift command center, set up in her equipment barn. Multiple screens showed surveillance feeds. Linda's diner now dark and empty. Deputy Cooper questioning someone at the station. Mayor Hayes rushing into his lake house with packed bags. Your military background, Cross studied her. It included security training, yes? Among other things, Rachel responded carefully. Through the barn window, she saw more vehicles arriving. Expensive SUVs with diplomatic plates. Good, because right now we need to know exactly who we can trust. He pointed to one screen showing the diner. Starting with your friend Linda, find out what she gave the feds. Rachel's phone buzzed. A message from Deputy Cooper. Linda safe. Evidence. Secured. Hayes trying to flee. Time's ticking, Phillips added. Our associates expect solutions, not excuses. The Eastern European made a call in Russian. Rachel caught fragments about delayed shipments and alternative routes. On another screen, she saw unmarked vehicles moving through town, their patterns suggesting they were searching for something or someone. One more thing. Cross pulled up a file on his laptop. Your background check, interesting history, almost no digital footprint before 5 years ago. Rachel felt the trap being laid, but showed no reaction. Some farmers prefer privacy. Privacy, yes, Philip's smile widened, but complete anonymity makes people wonder. A commotion outside interrupted them. One of Cross's men entered quickly, speaking in hushed tones. Rachel caught fragments about modified equipment and customs inspection. Cross's expression darkened. This compromises everything, the whole operation. Calm down, Cross cut him off. Ms. Anderson here is going to help us clean house, starting with Linda and those documents. Rachel understood the implicit threat. They were testing her, pushing to see if she'd carry out what amounted to a hit on her friend. Her secure phone vibrated, Agent Chen updating operation parameters. Federal teams had tracked the weapons to a secondary storage site, and the buyers were moving their operation north, cutting ties with the raiders. Time for you to earn your place, Cross said. Find Linda, find what she gave the feds, handle it. And my farm? She asked, already calculating angles. Agent Chen's team would be monitoring Linda's safe house. Deputy Cooper had positioned officers he trusted near likely locations. Your farm is already serving its purpose, the Eastern European smiled coldly. Modified equipment ready for transport. Export papers prepared. 1 hour, Phillips checked. His watch. Bring us proof you've handled Linda, or we reconsider your employment status. Rachel nodded, already calculating angles. Through her barn's windows, she spotted more raiders arriving, preparing for what looked like a major transport operation. Better hurry, the Eastern European smiled coldly. Others are already hunting. First to find Linda gets to keep their breathing privileges. Outside, Rachel spotted expensive vehicles moving into position, shadowing her truck. Let them follow. Sometimes the best way to find a target was to let someone else do the hunting. Her watch vibrated twice. Agent Chen signaled that the major operation was ready. The next few hours would determine everything. The raiders, the weapons dealers, the corrupt officials, all of them were about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating federal agencies. By morning, Cross called after her, either Linda pays for her mistake or you pay for yours. Rachel climbed into her truck, watched by multiple armed men. Through her mirrors, she spotted at least 3 vehicles preparing to follow her. Her phone lit up with a message from Agent Chen. Major players moving, cartel representatives arrived, weapon buyers mobilizing. This wasn't just about finding Linda anymore. The raiders were using her farm as a major distribution hub, modifying agricultural equipment for weapons transport. Each tractor, each combine, each piece of heavy machinery could be hiding weapons caches. Her watch vibrated with Deputy Cooper's signal. Honest officers were in position around key locations. The raiders thought they were hunting Linda, but they were about to walk into a carefully laid trap. Sometimes the best operations let the enemy think they were winning right until the very end. Rachel started her truck, already planning her next moves. By morning, the raiders would learn why underestimating a former SWAT agent was their biggest mistake. Rachel's truck moved steadily through the darkness of Riverdale Valley's back roads, headlights cutting through the dense fog that had settled over the farmland. Behind her, 3 vehicles maintained careful pursuit distance, raiders and their Eastern European partners watching her every move. Through her mirrors, she caught glimpses of additional motorcycles moving parallel through the fields, their riders using night vision equipment to maintain visual contact. Professional operation, military precision. These weren't just local thugs anymore. Her phone lit up with a message from Cross. Time's running out. Linda's location or your farm becomes another tragic accident scene. Deputy Cooper's update. Followed, Hayes spotted heading toward county line. Multiple raiders escorting him. Something big's moving tonight. Rachel took a sharp turn onto a gravel road, noting how her pursuit adjusted their formation with practiced efficiency. Her watch vibrated. Agent Chen's signal indicating federal teams were tracking multiple weapon shipments being moved simultaneously. Target heading east. One of the pursuit vehicles reported over a frequency Rachel's hidden scanner picked up, likely moving toward Williams' old storage facility. Grace Williams' death had been their warning shot to the community. Now they were using her property as a temporary weapons depot. Rachel's steady driving gave no indication she'd heard their transmission. Her secure phone buzzed with Agent Chen's update. Major players converging on multiple sites. Cartel representatives meeting buyers at North Ridge facility, international transport standing by. Through the fog, Rachel caught glimpses of heavy equipment being moved along the farm access roads, combines and tractors running without lights, heading toward predetermined rally points, each machine modified to conceal weapons shipments. All teams maintain distance, another transmission crackled. Subject appears to be following expected search pattern for locating high-value target. They thought they were herding her, directing her movements while maintaining the illusion she was hunting freely. Rachel encouraged their assumption, taking routes that suggested someone looking for a frightened diner owner. Her phone flashed with multiple messages. From Linda, safe house. More men watching the diner. They're loading something into the basement. From Deputy Cooper, Wilson ordered all patrols away from farm access roads, equipment convoys moving freely. From Cross, your time's almost up. Don't make us reconsider your usefulness. Rachel's truck approached an abandoned grain storage facility. Her pursuit vehicle spread out, expecting her to search the location. Through her night vision-equipped rear camera, she counted 8 armed men moving to cover potential exits. Target stopping at Jensen's old grain facility, the radio crackled. All teams maintain perimeter. If she's made contact with the target, no one leaves. Rachel stepped out of her truck, playing the role of someone checking a potential hiding spot. Her movements were deliberately amateur, making noise, using her flashlight obviously, everything a trained operator wouldn't do. Amateur, one of the Eastern Europeans commented over the radio. No tactical awareness, definitely not law enforcement. That's what they were really testing, whether her self-defense skills at the diner had been a fluke or indication of professional training. Rachel maintained her farm owner facade, making a show of checking obvious hiding spots. While missing actual tactical positions, her watch vibrated twice. Agent Chen signaled that federal teams were tracking all pursuit vehicles, documenting the raiders' entire operational pattern. Subject appears ineffective, another transmission reported. Proceeding with primary transport operation. Through the facility's broken windows, Rachel spotted heavy equipment moving on the main road, more modified farm machinery heading toward predetermined distribution points. The weapons were being moved while the raiders had their surveillance. Teams distracted with watching her. Her phone lit up with urgent messages from Agent Chen. Multiple shipments confirmed. They're using your search as cover for major transport operation. From Deputy Cooper, Hayes reached county line, meeting with international buyers confirmed. From Cross, 1 hour left, Linda's location or your farm burns, with you in it. Rachel checked her watch, noting the positions of all surveillance teams. The raiders had established a perfect perimeter, exactly as she'd predicted. Now it was time to use their own tactics against them. Target returning to vehicle, the radio crackled. Maintain follow positions. Rachel drove toward the next logical search location, her moves calculated to appear random while actually following a carefully planned route. Each turn, each stop, drew more raiders and their partners away from their weapons transport operations. Her secure phone vibrated. Agent Chen's teams had identified all modified equipment. Each piece of farm machinery was being tracked, its weapons cargo documented. The raiders thought they were running a sophisticated shell game, but they were actually exposing their entire distribution network. All teams be advised, the radio crackled again. Primary shipment approaching checkpoint Alpha. Maintain surveillance on subject, but prepare for transport support. Through her mirrors, Rachel noticed some of her pursuit vehicles peeling away, responding to the needs of the weapons transport operation. The raiders were getting stretched thin, trying to maintain surveillance while managing their largest shipment. Yet, her phone buzzed with Deputy Cooper's update. Multiple agencies standing by. They're documenting everything. The whole operation's about to be exposed. Sometimes the best way to unravel a criminal enterprise was to let them think they were succeeding while they actually exposed themselves. Each modified tractor, each surveillance team, each radio transmission was being recorded and documented. Subject's search pattern is becoming erratic, one of the Eastern Europeans reported. Possible sign of desperation. If they only knew. Rachel's desperate search was actually a carefully choreographed dance, drawing their attention exactly where she wanted it. Her watch vibrated again. Agent Chen confirming that federal teams were in position at all major transport routes. The abandoned Jensen grain storage facility loomed against the night sky, its weathered silos casting long shadows in the moonlight. Rachel watched from the tree line as raiders established their perimeter, their movements betraying professional military training despite their attempt to maintain a casual appearance. Cross emerged from an expensive SUV, flanked by his Eastern European partners. The weapons buyers had finally decided to inspect their shipment personally. Behind them, modified farm equipment was being moved into position, combines and tractors that concealed a fortune in illegal arms. All teams maintained coverage. Phillips's voice crackled over the radio frequency Rachel's scanner monitored. VIP inspection commencing in 10 minutes. Her phone lit up with Agent Chen's update. Multiple high-value targets on site. International buyers confirmed. Authorization for full operation received. Through her night vision scope, Rachel counted at least 20 armed men securing the facility's perimeter. The raiders weren't taking any chances with this shipment. Her watch vibrated. Deputy Cooper's signal that honest officers were in position, ready to cut off all escape routes. "Ms. Anderson," Cross's voice carried across the open space. "I know you're watching. Time to finish our discussion about farm equipment modifications." Rachel emerged from cover, maintaining her role as a compromised farmer. Quite an operation for simple agricultural sales. Nothing simple about it. One of the Eastern Europeans smiled coldly. His companions were inspecting a modified combine, its internal compartments expertly altered to conceal weapons. "Your farm's equipment will serve similar purposes very soon." Cross gestured toward the facility's entrance. "Your technical expertise has impressed our partners. They're particularly interested in your equipment modification skills." Inside, the facility had been transformed. Industrial lighting illuminated what had once been grain storage areas, now converted into a sophisticated weapons distribution center. Multiple screens displayed surveillance feeds, tracking shipments and monitoring potential threats. "Impressive," Rachel noted, cataloging every detail while appearing merely curious. "But this level of organization suggests something bigger than local operations." "Much bigger," Cross confirmed. "These modifications aren't just for one shipment. We're establishing a permanent network. Every farm, every piece of equipment, every storage facility, all part of a larger distribution system." Her phone vibrated silently. Agent Chen warning that more players were arriving. Through the facility's windows, Rachel spotted diplomatic vehicles approaching. The real buyers were here. "Your farm is perfect," Phillips added. "Remote location, excellent access roads, legitimate agricultural businesses cover. All we need is your cooperation in equipment modification." The Eastern European's phone buzzed. His expression darkened as he read the message. "We have movement at secondary sites. Federal teams identified. Cross's response was immediate. Accelerate the timeline. Begin demonstration protocol. Rachel's watch vibrated urgently. Agent Chen warning that the raiders were preparing to demonstrate their modified equipment's capabilities to the buyers. This wasn't just an inspection, it was a sales presentation. Watch closely, Ms. Anderson, Cross directed as the facility's main doors opened. A procession of farm machinery entered, tractors, combines, and harvesters, each one modified to conceal different types of weapons. Your equipment will be next. Through her hidden earpiece, Rachel heard Deputy Cooper's update. Multiple agencies standing by, but they're waiting for clear evidence of weapons before moving in. The buyers emerged from their vehicles, high-ranking military officials hiding behind diplomatic credentials. Their presence made this an international incident, complicating law enforcement response. Begin demonstration sequence, Cross ordered. The first modified tractor moved into position. Its seemingly normal agricultural attachments concealed sophisticated weapon systems. Show our guests exactly what their investment buys them. Rachel's phone lit up with urgent messages from Agent Chen. They're not just selling weapons, they're selling the entire modification system. Plans, procedures, network infrastructure. From Deputy Cooper, Hayes spotted returning with additional buyers, major players converging on your location. From Linda, safe house. Rachel, they're moving something big through the tunnel system under the diner, something heavy. The demonstration began. Raiders expertly displayed how each piece of farm equipment could be transformed into a weapons transport platform while maintaining full agricultural functionality. The buyers watched with professional interest, taking notes and speaking quietly among themselves. Your farm's equipment will be modified to similar specifications, Cross informed Rachel. Our technical teams are already preparing the conversions. Rachel noted how the facility's security teams maintained perfect coverage during the demonstration. These weren't just criminals. This was a professional military operation hiding behind a rural crime gang. Her watch vibrated with Agent Chen's. Warning, federal teams had identified weapons in all displayed equipment, but moving in now would risk an international incident with the diplomatic buyers. Time to choose sides definitively, Ms. Anderson, Cross announced. The demonstration concludes with a practical example of how we handle uncooperative farmers. The implications were clear. This wasn't just a sales demonstration, they were planning to use her farm as an example. Through the facility's windows, Rachel spotted more raiders arriving, taking tactical positions. Sometimes the best operations required perfect timing. Her phone buzzed one final time, Agent Chen confirming that all pieces were in place. The raiders thought they were running a sophisticated weapons demonstration. In reality, they were about to provide federal agencies with all the evidence needed to bring down their entire operation. The choice is simple, Cross continued, unaware of the net closing around him. Your farm becomes part of our distribution network, or it becomes another tragic accident, like Grace Williams. Rachel checked her watch, noting the positions of all security teams. The raiders had established a perfect perimeter, exactly as planned. Now it was time to let them demonstrate exactly how they smuggled weapons, while multiple federal agencies recorded everything. Rachel watched through her scope as the raiders' demonstration reached its final phase. Cross's security teams had established perfect coverage around the Jensen facility, their positions revealing professional military training. The modified farm equipment stood ready, each piece concealing sophisticated weapons systems that would soon be demonstrated for international buyers. Final phase initiating, Cross's voice carried across the facility. All teams confirm positions. Rachel's phone lit up with Agent Chen's urgent update. Multiple diplomatic vehicles approaching from North Access Road. High-level military buyers confirmed. Maintain cover until demonstration fully documented. Through her night vision equipment, Rachel tracked 3 unmarked SUVs moving along the back roads, their drivers maintaining tactical spacing. These weren't just arms dealers. They were professional military operators conducting a sophisticated weapons sale. "Target site secure," Phillips reported over the radio frequency. "VIP convoy 5 minutes out." Rachel's watch vibrated. Deputy Cooper's signal that honest officers had established containment positions beyond the raiders' perimeter. Her truck was parked at the predetermined rally point, appearing to be just another piece of farm equipment in the darkness. "Miss Anderson," Cross called out, "time to take your position for the demonstration. Our buyers are particularly interested in your farm's potential." Rachel emerged from cover, playing the role of compromised farmer while cataloging every detail. The Eastern European buyers were inspecting the modified equipment, their expertise evident in their questions about concealment capabilities and transport capacity. Her secure phone vibrated. Agent Chen warning that the diplomatic vehicles were carrying military officials from multiple nations. Any confrontation now would trigger an international incident. They needed clear evidence of weapons sales before moving in. "Impressive modifications," one of the Eastern Europeans noted, examining a combine harvester that concealed an arsenal in its seemingly normal agricultural attachments. "Your farm's equipment will be similarly enhanced." Cross gestured toward the facility's main staging area. "The demonstration will show exactly how our transport network operates. Pay close attention. Your equipment will soon be part of it." Through the facility's windows, Rachel spotted more vehicles arriving. Her earpiece carried Deputy Cooper's update. Hayes returning with additional buyers, multiple high-level targets converging. "Begin final demonstration sequence," Cross ordered. The modified farm equipment moved into position, each piece revealing its hidden weapons capabilities. The buyers watched with professional interest, taking detailed notes. Rachel's phone buzzed with urgent messages. From Agent Chen, "All modified equipment identified. Multiple weapon systems confirmed. Standing by for final evidence." From Deputy Cooper, "Surveillance teams documenting everything. Full operation about to be exposed." From Linda, Safe House, "Rachel, more men arriving at the diner. They're moving something through the tunnel system." The demonstration proceeded with military precision. Each piece of equipment displayed its concealment capabilities, showing how normal agricultural operations could mask sophisticated weapons. "Transport. Your farm is perfectly positioned," Cross informed Rachel as they watched. "Direct access to major transport routes, legitimate business cover, excellent storage facilities." Her watch vibrated with Agent Chen's warning. Federal teams were tracking all displayed weapons, but needed clear evidence of sales transactions before moving in. Through her scope, Rachel spotted the diplomatic convoy approaching. High-ranking military officials hiding behind diplomatic credentials, the real buyers had arrived. "All teams maintain positions," Phillips ordered over the radio. "VIP inspection commencing." The facility's main doors opened, revealing the full scale of the operation. Modified tractors, combines, and harvesters, each one a sophisticated weapons transport platform disguised as normal farm equipment. Rachel's phone lit up with Agent Chen's confirmation. Surveillance teams were documenting everything. The raiders thought they were running a professional weapons demonstration. In reality, they were providing federal agencies with all the evidence needed to bring down their operation. "Watch closely," Cross directed as the buyers emerged from their vehicles. "Your farm's equipment will be next. Unless, of course, you prefer to end up like Grace Williams." The implications were clear. This wasn't just a sales demonstration. It was also a threat. The raiders were showing exactly what happened to uncooperative farmers. Sometimes, the best operations required perfect timing. Rachel checked her watch, noting the positions of all security teams. The raiders had established a perfect perimeter, exactly as planned. Now, it was time to let them complete their demonstration, while multiple federal agencies recorded everything. What happens next will shake Riverdale Valley to its core. Rachel watched as the weapons demonstration reached its climax, the modified farm equipment performing flawlessly for the assembled international buyers. Cross stood proudly by his handiwork, unaware that every movement was being documented by federal surveillance teams. As you can see, gentlemen, Cross addressed the diplomatic delegation, each piece of equipment maintains full agricultural functionality while concealing sophisticated weapons systems, perfect coverage for international transport. Through her scope, Rachel tracked multiple security teams, maintaining professional perimeter control. The raiders had transformed from local criminals into something far more dangerous. A sophisticated arms trafficking operation using rural America as cover. Her phone lit up with Agent Chen's urgent update. All weapon systems documented, multiple international buyers confirmed, strike teams in position. The Eastern European buyers circled the modified combine harvester, their expertise evident in their detailed inspection. Impressive concealment design, and the transport network is fully operational. Completely, Cross confirmed. Multiple farms, legitimate agricultural businesses as cover, established transport routes. Ms. Anderson's farm will be our newest addition. He turned to Rachel. Won't it? Rachel maintained her compromised farmer role while her watch vibrated. Deputy Cooper's signal that honest officers had surrounded the facility. Seems you've thought of everything. Almost everything. Phillips smiled coldly, drawing his weapon. Except there's one small problem. Our background check on you finally came through. Interesting reading. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Security teams moved with tactical precision, weapons trained on Rachel. Through the facility's windows, she spotted more raiders taking positions. Former SWAT, wasn't it? Cross's voice carried dangerous edge. Very clever cover. The quiet farmer, hiding in plain sight. But you made one mistake. You're not the only one with law enforcement connections. Rachel's phone buzzed silently. Agent Chen warning that the raiders were preparing for violence. The diplomatic. Buyers were retreating to their vehicles, maintaining deniability. Sheriff Wilson was quite helpful, Phillips continued, once he discovered your real identity. Amazing what people will reveal when properly motivated. Rachel calculated angles, noting positions of all armed men. Her earpiece carried Deputy Cooper's urgent update. Wilson mobilizing corrupt officers, moving to intercept. Kill her, one of the Eastern Europeans ordered. We can't risk. The night erupted in chaos. Federal agents emerged from concealed positions, supported by honest local officers. FBI, everyone on the ground. The raiders responded with professional efficiency, their military training evident as they engaged federal teams while protecting their weapons shipment. Cross barked orders directing his men with tactical precision. All units converge. Agent Chen's voice carried over Rachel's earpiece. Primary targets attempting to flee with diplomatic convoy. Rachel moved the instant gunfire erupted, her SWAT training taking over. She disabled 2 raiders with precise strikes before they could bring weapons to bear, then used their bodies as cover from Phillips's return fire. Through the chaos, she spotted Cross rushing toward a modified tractor, its weapons compartment still open from the demonstration. The Eastern Europeans were providing covering fire, trying to reach their diplomatic vehicles. Stop that tractor, Agent Chen ordered. Can't let them destroy evidence. Rachel sprinted through crossfire, timing her movements between bursts of gunfire. Cross had nearly reached the tractor's cab when she tackled him, both of them rolling across concrete as bullets sparked nearby. You have no idea what you've done, Cross snarled. fighting with military expertise. This is bigger than you know. Their close-quarter combat was brutal and efficient. 2 trained operators fighting for survival. Cross landed a solid strike to Rachel's ribs, but she countered with an elbow strike that shattered his nose. Through the facility's windows, she glimpsed the diplomatic convoy attempting escape. Deputy Cooper's voice crackled over her earpiece. "Roadblocks in position. They're not getting out." The Eastern Europeans had reached their vehicles, using diplomatic immunity as shield. But Rachel noticed them abandoning their weapons. They couldn't risk being caught armed. "Federal agents," Agent Chen's voice boomed. "This facility is surrounded. Surrender now." Cross made one final desperate move, pulling a concealed weapon. But Rachel was faster. She disarmed him with a precise wrist lock, forcing him face down as federal agents converged. "It's over," Rachel informed him, securing restraints. "Your whole operation is exposed." "Is it?" Cross laughed through bloody teeth. "You think this is the only operation? We're everywhere. Every small town, every farming community. You can't stop it all." Rachel's phone lit up with urgent messages. From Linda: "Rachel, they're destroying evidence at the diner, hearing explosions in the tunnel system." From Deputy Cooper: "Wilson and Hayes escaped, moving to intercept." From Agent Chen: "Multiple weapons caches located, entire network exposed." The facility was secured, raiders and their international partners in custody. But Rachel knew Cross was right. This was just one operation. How many other small towns were being used as cover for weapon smuggling? Her watch vibrated with Agent Chen's signal. Operation successful, but bigger implications discovered. This wasn't just about taking down one weapons ring. They'd uncovered an entire network using rural America's farming communities as cover for international arms trafficking. Sometimes the biggest cases start with the smallest leads. What began as investigating equipment theft in a quiet farming town had exposed an international weapons smuggling operation. But as Rachel watched federal agents processing the scene, she knew this was just the beginning. Dawn broke over Riverdale Valley, revealing the aftermath of the night's operation. The Jensen facility was now a hive of federal activity. Agents processing evidence as modified farm equipment was documented and secured. Rachel watched from a distance as her months of undercover work finally bore fruit. Final count: Agent Chen approached, tablet in hand. 37 modified pieces of equipment, each concealing sophisticated weapons systems. 15 high-level arrests, including international buyers. Evidence linking operations in 6 other states. Through the morning mist, Rachel spotted Deputy Cooper coordinating with honest officers, securing the perimeter while federal teams worked. The raiders' entire network had been exposed, their careful cover of small-town crime shattered. "Wilson and Hayes?" Rachel asked, noting the continued police activity in town. "Intercepted at the county line," Cooper confirmed, joining them. "Found them with documentation of similar operations in other farming communities. They were planning to expand." Rachel's phone lit up with messages. From Linda: "Investigators found the tunnel system under the diner. You won't believe how extensive it is." From Agent Chen: "International task force being assembled. Similar operations identified in multiple countries." From Deputy Cooper: "More farmers coming forward. Looks like the raiders had been pressuring communities across 3 states." The facility's main doors opened as federal agents led out the handcuffed Eastern European buyers. Their diplomatic immunity hadn't protected them from being caught in a documented weapons sale. "It was never just about equipment theft," Rachel observed, watching the prisoners being processed. "The whole operation was designed to look like local crime while masking international weapons smuggling." "Smart cover," Chen agreed. "Who looks twice at farm equipment moving between rural communities? Perfect transportation network hiding in plain sight." Through the morning light, Rachel spotted more federal vehicles arriving. The scale of the investigation was growing as new evidence emerged. "Cross is talking," Cooper updated them. "Trading information for considerations." Apparently, this was just one hub in a larger network. They've been using farming communities as cover for years. Rachel's watch vibrated with an urgent signal. New developments at multiple locations. The raiders' exposure had started a chain reaction, revealing similar operations across the country. Linda's evidence was crucial, Chen noted, reviewing data on her tablet. Those shipping manifests she collected exposed the entire transport network. Brave woman. Small towns make perfect cover, Rachel reflected. Close-knit communities, local police forces easily corrupted, legitimate agricultural business as front. Who'd suspect sophisticated weapons smuggling in places like Riverdale Valley? Her phone buzzed with new messages. From Linda, Town Council in emergency session, half the members just resigned. From Agent Chen, international agencies confirming similar patterns, rural communities being used as cover worldwide. From Cooper, more honest officers coming forward. The corruption went deeper than anyone suspected. The morning sun illuminated the modified farm equipment being documented by federal teams. Each piece represented a sophisticated weapons transport system disguised as normal agricultural machinery. "Grace Williams figured it out," Rachel said quietly. "That's why they killed her. She discovered what they were really using her storage facility for." "Her death won't go unpunished," Cooper assured her. "We found evidence in Hayes's files. The raiders' whole operation is exposed now." Through the facility's windows, Rachel watched as agents uncovered more hidden compartments, each revealing sophisticated weapon systems integrated into farming equipment. "What happens to the farms?" she asked, thinking of the communities impacted by the raiders' operation. "Federal assistance programs already mobilizing," Chen replied. "Supporting affected farmers, helping communities recover. But more importantly, establishing safeguards to prevent similar operations from taking root." Rachel's watch vibrated with a final signal. Operation officially concluded. Her cover was no longer needed. But as she watched federal teams processing evidence, she knew this case would have lasting implications. "Sometimes the biggest threats hide in the smallest places," she reflected. "Everyone looking at big cities, ports, borders, while international weapons smugglers use rural America as their transport network." "Not anymore," Cooper smiled. "Thanks to one farmer who wasn't quite what she seemed." The sun climbed higher as Rachel prepared to leave Riverdale Valley. Her mission was complete, but the impact would ripple through rural communities nationwide. Sometimes the most effective operations were the ones that exposed something so completely that no one could ignore it. Linda approached, carrying coffee for the assembled law enforcement teams. "Town won't be the same after this," she observed. "But maybe that's not a bad thing. Time for a fresh start." Rachel nodded, watching as more evidence was loaded into federal vehicles. The raiders had thought they'd found the perfect cover, using rural America's farming communities to mask international weapons smuggling. Instead, they'd learned a hard lesson about underestimating small towns and the people who protect them. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this journey through one of rural America's most shocking undercover operations.